So making a handle for your mug. So you've got your coil-built mugs and you've pulled aside a piece of clay to get the finish for. So it doesn't need to be very much clay. This is pretty small. So we'll see what I can do with that. Okay, a little ball of clay. I'm gonna roll it into a coil, but I'm gonna do it purposely so that there's a thicker end and a thinner end. So when I'm rolling my coil, I'm pressing just a little further or a little harder on one side than the other. Now, I don't need this to be very big. My mugs all have been about 3.5 to 4 inches tall. If you have a taller mug, tall skinny mug, you might want to make your coil a little bit longer. But this one, I'm going to grab my ruler. This one is 4 inches. So we'll see what that does for me. Okay, so now it's nice and round, but I need it to have a side flattened out, because what you find is if you have a rounded handle, your fingers can kind of twist and don't have a place to sort of lock in and hold when your mug's full of liquid and it's nice and heavy. Then you need to have a little flat portion on the back of your mug. So you can either tap it down with your hands, or you can throw it down against a surface. Now, I'm on a wood surface, so when you have a raw wood surface, it doesn't stick very much. If you're on a kitchen counter or something that's stone, laminate, anything like that, your clay may stick. So instead, have a piece of paper, and again, you can throw it down on that piece of paper and it won't stick, okay? So now I've got my handle, I've got a flattened side, it's still rounded, it's a good shape. You can add things to it, you can create all kinds of textures on the surface, you can go around that edge and do all kinds of things. You really don't need to texture the backside though, because again, that's where your fingers are going to be and it's mostly hidden. But if you want to, you certainly can. The important thing to do at this point is to trim away. So I've got to create an angle at the top of the handle. So I'm going to push away and down. And I take off this little bit of clay and I've got this angled cut. That's the really important part, because I need to place this against the mug and create this arch that's going to happen here. And that's what makes your handle much stronger and much more comfortable to use than just sticking something straight on. Sometimes students just want to push a handle on and just sort of attach it to the side, but it won't be nearly as strong and as comfortable to hold as this. So I've got my downward angle, just like you see on this cup. I'm going to do it on the side of this spray bottle, so hopefully you can even see it more clearly than you might on the mug. And that is that I'm going to put this, so if this was the rim of my mug, I'm going to start my handle just below that rim, okay? So again, just in case that doesn't make sense, I'm going to grab one that's kind of plain. So I don't want to put the handle all the way at the top of the rim, because then when I do that arch, my handle's going to be way up above the cup lip. Instead, I'm going to set it down just a little bit, about 1/2 inch, 1/4 inch. You could go even lower. If you like the style of doing like a single loop handle, you could even do it maybe at the halfway point, okay? But I'm going to hold it against the piece. I'm going to put my thumb on that thin portion that's at the angle and hold that in place. And then I'm gently going to bend that handle around and figure out where the base of the handle is going to fit on the mug. You can make it shorter than the actual amount of clay that you have, or you can use that whole coil of clay because it wasn't very big in the first place, okay? And then on your mug, you would mark where this is. Take your handle without flattening it out, but keeping it in this little question mark kind of shape, and set it down against the tabletop. And then on my mug, I would be scoring both spots, putting a little drop of water, and then scoring again to create my slip. And then my handle, again, keeping it in this shape, goes right against the side and right against the bottom there. And then I spend a little time blending that clay in until I don't really see any seams anymore. In this case, you're gonna see it all really clearly because it's the bottom of a bottle, not a mug of the same clay. And I can either leave the base of the handle to kind of be a little shape to it, or I can cut off any excess. Now I don't want to cut it off way up here because then I wouldn't have anything attached. So I'm leaving a little bit of clay beneath it to be attached, and then I can blend that in or leave it flat. But you can see you can get a little handle, 2-finger handle, really will become a 1-finger handle because remember, this is going to shrink when it gets fired in the kiln. So that's a relatively small handle, but that's just the straightforward 1 coil and done. Actually, I should leave that on there. Okay. Other kind of coil that I told you guys about was to do one that's kind of this puffy style of handle that's just a more full, it's a softer shape, and it's made out of basically the same amount of clay. So if I have a little ball of clay, just about the same size as the one I had before. Again, these are sort of on the shorter side. You can have a little more clay set aside. You'll get just a little bit more length of handle. So again, I roll this sort of carrot shape that's tapered, wide side, narrow side. Again, not very long in this case. I'm going to measure again. I'm just under 4 inches here, so I'm even a little bit smaller. We'll see if I can make this go. I'm going to pat it down a little bit, flipping this one over. This one, though, I do want to really stretch out and make it super thin. So I'm going to throw it against the tabletop. Again, if you don't have a wood table or surface, you can do it against paper and you can see clearly. It doesn't stick, might even bounce. I'm tossing it down at an angle though. I'm not just throwing it straight down. If I throw it straight down, it's just gonna stick and it's not gonna stretch. But if I come from the side and kind of throw it, again, it's sort of bouncing, which is funny, but you see that it starts to stretch in the direction in which it's been tossed. So I hold it in lots of different ways. I turn it over so that both sides get stretched and I get a nice flattened out piece of clay. And it might take some practice doing that a few times. You might end up throwing it wrong and it all crumples up, but that's the basic idea. You could pinch this all out, but I just find I get a super nice flat even piece really fast, and I've still got my triangle here. On this you can create textures just like I was talking about on the other handle. I'm going to leave this one blank at the moment, and I hold it so that the narrow end is in my palm and the wide end is in my fingers. I'm going to start bending this, sort of folding it. I'm going to grab just a finger, just dip a finger in water and get one edge of it wet. And then I'm continuing to bring and fold these until I fold the side that has the water over the other side. And I'm really creating a tube with my clay. And I have a little seam here, and you have the choice. You can blend that seam by very gently pressing the clay, or you can leave the seam there because no one's ever going to see it because it's going to be on the underside of your handle. So it's up to you. If you're struggling and you're pressing a little too hard, one, your clay should be super soft so it doesn't require a lot of pressure. But if you need to put something inside the little tube to keep it from collapsing, you could slide a pencil in there. You could use the brush end or the handle end of your paintbrush. But you do want to leave this nice and open because that's the puffiness of it. And then I'm going to set this down on the table just exactly the same way. Narrow end is toward me, wider end is away, and I'm going to cut down in a way to get this beveled, almost like a 45-degree angle cut. Only this time, because I'm using really thin clay, I'm not going to get as wide a bevel. Sometimes it almost wipes it off. So there's just a little bit of a bevel right here. And then again, the same exact thing. I'm going to use this. So the bevel cut goes down. The narrowest part is at the bottom. I'm going to set it up so it's below the rim here. And then I'm going to hold that in place and gently fold this little form over. again, tuck that end down. So if it was a long piece, I could trim it. In this case, it's a pretty narrow piece. And then you would mark where it is on your mug, remove that, score, add your water for slip, score again, and then place that piece right back on there, and then blend it in and smooth it into place. And you end up with your handle. In my case, I have a spray bottle with an attitude. All right, have fun with it.